Today we come to you from 365 Sports in Waco, Texas, where we lost one of our own. A member of this show with Monday segments discussing and analyzing Baylor football, played for Baylor, quarterback at Baylor, and a beloved player, one of the most unassuming and most popular players in Baylor athletics history, passed away on Tuesday. JJ Joe, who was with us on Monday evenings during our show talking Baylor football. Grant Taft was his football coach for most of his career at Baylor and released a statement earlier today about JJ Joe and his legacy. Coach Taft, on JJ Joe, I am honored to have been JJ's coach. I am heartbroken. JJ was one of the finest men I've ever had the privilege of coaching. He was an excellent leader, talented athlete. He was unselfish and always cared more about the success of his teammates than his own accolades. He was tough, determined, and did he love his team in Baylor University. After he left Baylor, he became not just a former player, but a close and trusted friend. He is so special and will always remain in my heart and live on in the spirit of the Baylor family. Good afternoon. I'm David Smoak with Paul Catalina and Craig Smoak. We appreciate your time. Some of you, when you heard the news, have reached out about how we would handle the show today. We're going to try to honor JJ in a way and also have what we do every day. But JJ Joe passed away yesterday afternoon, and it has hit the Baylor family like a ton of bricks, of course, as you can imagine.
Yeah, I've known JJ for a very long time. And, I mean, when you sent me the text last night, I just kept waiting for you to send, like, oh, no, he's in the hospital. He's alive. They're doing, like, it wasn't, you know, like you just, I had that moment. I guess that's the denial of, or the hope that it wasn't, because there's very few people you'll meet that are as good at everything as JJ was. And I'm not just talking about football. He's tremendously fun broadcaster to listen to, and not in a conventional way. Like, you listen to John and JJ, there are things that JJ just does a little bit differently than others. But what you could always hear on a broadcast is that even in the darkest of times for Baylor, JJ was having fun doing what he was doing. And JJ was fun to be in rooms with because he had a light about him, as a husband, a father, a brother, a son, like whatever you want to say. JJ was the best that he could be at all of that. And I know he was a fantastic friend to me. He was a fantastic friend to this show. We always loved having him on. His smile and his laugh. I mean, these do sound like platitudes, but genuinely with JJ, I'll always remember that big smile, how he laughed, and the way that he just approached things with such enthusiasm and joy. And the world is a sadder place with that JJ Joe in it, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, when I came to Waco a little over 10 years ago, there were certain people that opened their arms and made the transition a bit easier. You don't know how you're going to fit in or be welcomed in and things like that. And JJ was one of those former players who I knew was also involved in broadcasting, so kind of looked at him as somebody who mattered and I'd want to get to know, and he made that very easy and took the steps to make that seamless. And I will always thank him for just being as welcoming as he was and making me feel comfortable and making me feel like I was a part of, the coverage and a part of the extended Baylor family, so to speak, although not being a graduate or a player. In his case, somebody so involved and remained so involved throughout my time here. I will forever have memories of hearing his voice in the booth with John Morris and some of the classic calls they had, some of the crazy moments they had. It was fun to listen to those guys and listen to the post game once we'd get done with Dave Aranda's press conference and get back in the car and start to try to leave the stadium and get to listen to a little bit of those guys and hear their thoughts, good, bad, ugly, or otherwise. I always appreciated what JJ had to say, regardless of what the result was. And when I got that text last night, I mean, it was completely out of the blue, obviously. This was not on anybody's radar whatsoever that I'm aware of, at least. It wasn't as like there was some prolonged illness and you're just kind of waiting for that moment. This was completely out of the blue. And after kind of just letting it sit there for a second and go, whoa, this is real. My heart just shattered into 1,000 pieces for his loved ones, because I can't imagine what they must be feeling, what they must be going through. And that's a lot of people, because that's not only, his family, but it's all the other friends and others he touched throughout his life. And so that's a mighty long list. That's a big group of people who are very sad today. And I don't know what the equivalent would be, but sometimes you see like Iowa State legend passes away at age whatever, or West Virginia legend, and you kind of go, okay, and you maybe know a little bit about them depending on their career. I'll just tell the people out there that don't know, this is like the biggest kick in the gut for the Baylor family. Like this is really just a horrible day. And so to see everybody kind of giving their memories and their thoughts, all of them so positive and so...
If you're looking for a wheeled cooler, this is the Arctic 52-quart ultralight wheeled cooler. I hauled it on a deck, I hauled it downstairs, upstairs, grass, gravel, sandy road, mud puddles, the whole bit. And I gotta say, it is pretty darn tough. I really do like the wheels and the tow handle. It's easy to hold on to, even when full. It made it 6 full days with ice present, still keeping cool enough temperatures to keep drinks cold. This is a great cooler. And if you're looking for a new wheeled cooler that tows really nicely, this is a great option.
Good to see in this moment. It's been a beautiful thing, but you just hate that what it as a result of is talking about such a sad and sudden passing. So JJ, man, thanks for everything. And a lot of people miss you, brother. Already. So I can't wait to see, what others have to say. But I think it'll all be kind of the similar tone of, man, thanks. You were great. You're a pal. You're great. Whatever, fill in the blank. But yeah, I'll definitely have a warm place in my heart for him. And I'm just so sad, man. I really am so sad for his family, for his loved ones. And I know they'll have a lot of people wrapping their arms around them, and I'm sure that they'll need it. So if you have that in your heart, whatever it is you believe in, positive wishes, prayers, whatever, please send them his direction, his family's direction, and even Baylor's direction, because there's a lot of people that are aching today.
We have a text line that we don't use as much, but we have it, and it's 254-339-1122. And if you want to put something in that text line or even in the chat room that your thoughts about JJ Joe, there's a lot of things, sports news. We'll get to some of that eventually with the headlines. His broadcast, his partners, John Morris, Ricky Thompson, that it's hard on them, like everybody, but Ricky's going to join us. I reached out to him this morning. I said, listen, if you say no, I understand why. But would you want to come on and kind of reflect back on JJ Joe in every way? And he is going to join us today at 4:45. There's a post in the forum section from Stacy. The greatness of his legacy is in how long I am having to stand in line to say how much he will be missed and how many prayers go to his family. JJ's good now, going over songs and praises, maybe even a game-winning play with his Savior. That's from Stacy in the forum section. Here are a couple of other notes, and we'll read those today. And we appreciate your time. And hope you understand, and I think most of you do, this, like Craig said, former players, they pass away. Father Time wins. The clock never stops ticking. But this was one of it, as I said before, one of the most unassuming type, star-type players. They've had quarterbacks that had bigger trophies and highlights or whatever, RG3. They've had Mike Singletary. This one here, as Craig said, hits right where it hurts. Wow, this is tough news to take. If you asked me on the spot to start naming my all-time favorite Baylor football players, I'd be shocked if I got past 5 and probably not even past 3 before naming JJ Joe. I hope they do honor him in some way, memorialize him in some way at the stadium during football season. I listened to the archive football games quite a bit, and JJ's enthusiasm was my favorite part of listening. Never met him, but feel like I just lost a friend. Prayers up to his family. I want to bring this in because we talked about his broadcasting, and he was a fan. He bled Baylor green and gold. But he also had that knack on the Oklahoma game in 2011 when RG3 Griffin III threw the touchdown to Terrence Williams, and JJ called the touchdown before Terrence Williams caught the touchdown, which is a no-no in broadcasting, but not when you're JJ Joe. He would do that. He would absolutely sometimes finish the play. John never would blink because he understood the enthusiasm of former player.
Yeah, that's why I say it's unconventional. But, I remember the first thing Grant Taft told me about JJ Joe was he was, early on in his career, the worst at practicing. Like, they would run plays in practice, and JJ, like, that's why he kind of struggled to put him in the lineup, and then he was kind of forced to because of an injury, and then he's like, well, where's this? What's this? And so
it drives coaches crazy, too.
But eventually, they got, and he just knew that, like, look, I know I can trust this guy. I know I can trust him. And JJ, when the lights came on, was one of the best. And so, this is just a dark day for Baylor fans and anybody who knew JJ. It's a sad day for the city of Arlington. He was a big deal.
Arlington Lamar High School.
Yeah, he was a big deal up
Eddie
there,
Peach, the great Hall of Fame coach who passed away eventually, but was a part of the Vikings of Arlington Lamar High School. Let's see here. RIP to a childhood hero. One I would have picked out for my own kids to look up to. Talented, true, intelligent, and successful. I'm just going to cry the rest of the night. Just let me be. Missing you already, old friend. Enjoy heaven. You have definitely earned it. Here's another one. JJ was such a tremendous athlete and a champion for all things Baylor. As great as he was on the field, not many know he was a 3-time academic All-American. He's 3 or 4 years old, too young, but without question left an indelible mark on both Baylor University and the broader community. And there was, again, people who mentioned his broadcasting in calling plays sometimes, whether it was an interception or a touchdown or something else as well. From BU at Big 12, Patrick, JJ's heart was for Baylor football, loved covering them, felt the pain as a fan when things weren't going well, and the joy when they were. Classy guy, great interview, RIP, from a retired stockbroker. So there is a lot of what has been said already today in the chat room, and if you want to add anything to the mix, again, we appreciate you doing that, and we'll have Ricky Thompson on at 4:45. Here's something that JJ Joe said about Baylor. This is an article from 20 years ago. At Baylor, more so than other places, they put weight on what kind of student he was, the kind of guy he was. Baylor was the perfect place for me with the overriding values of the university. I just felt like I was perfect fit there, athletically and academically. It was the right size. Coach Taft was perfect in coaching me. There was a story about JJ Joe. Vanderbilt was on him, and it was going to be Vanderbilt. And then A&M was on him. And then at the last second, Grant Taft and Baylor got involved and recruited him, and he ended up being, again, a legend. In fact, the story, The Legend of JJ Joe, is a story when I went to Google it, popped up immediately. So hard to take. Melvin Bonner. How many times did people hear JJ Joe to Melvin Bonner for a touchdown during the careers of those two players when they were on the same team? So if you want to, again, we'd love to see anything you want to share with us on JJ Joe. Let's see here. Bobby, aside from being a stellar human being, man of great character, he was an incredible ambassador for Baylor University. From Paul, such a humble person. Love listening to him, watching him. Favorite game was Grant's. That Grant Taft's final game, by the way, was JJ Joe at the quarterback. From Daniel,
it was JJ Joe to Melvin Bonner to beat Arizona in the Hancock Bowl and then Taft's final game. That was a huge.
El Paso.
It was like 90 yards, something like that.
It was 69-yard touchdown.
And Bonner caught a halfback pass in that same game, but JJ threw it. It was like a shorter pass, and he spun away, went down the sideline, and scored. From Daniel, his enthusiasm when calling the overtime win against A&M was a perfect microcosm of JJ's announcing career.
Yeah, that's probably up there with his best calls. I mean, I don't know. I couldn't list off some of the earlier ones because I wasn't around for that. I don't recall exactly what he was doing during 61-58. I mean, that obviously would be up there, or during Jalen Petrie, not Jalen Petrie, but who was that made the stop? Now I'm completely forgetting, against Oklahoma State. Yeah, Jaron McVay's stop against Oklahoma State to win the Big 12 title. There's various moments that I know he had a great call for, but certainly, yeah, you could definitely feel his enthusiasm. You didn't bat an eye at the fact that he loved Baylor. Like, you didn't question that at all if you talked to him. He cared. He was great on this show every week during football season, just to give his insight or his thoughts. I know sometimes he'd be busy with work and have to, step away to give us that time, and that was always much appreciated. So, yeah, whether it was on the field or in the booth or, at work or whatever it was, at home with the family, people have good memories across the board, and that's the life he carved out in all too short a time. I mean, that's the thing. It's not like this guy was 77 years old. 54 years old, and just boom like that. And so that's the part that's, I think, the toughest probably to wrap your head around. And once you realize it, though, I mean, once saw that text message last night, I mean, it kind of like the thought went around my brain for like a second, just whirled around, and then finally got back around one cycle, and I'm like, nope, this is real. Yeah. And then once it set in, it was just like, man, I cannot believe this. And I said it a few minutes ago, but my heart just shattered for his family, for John Morris. Like, I can't even imagine what J-Mo is going through right now.
He's broadcasting a game and gets the news.
I mean, whatever he was doing. I know. But I mean, to have to do that in the middle of the game makes it tougher. But yeah, I mean, I don't care if he was sitting at home eating dinner. I mean, that was a crew right there. So yeah, my thoughts are entirely with those who were closest to him and who were most affected by this, because I mean, you can tell by us just on the periphery, and I know Paul especially had a much deeper friendship because you knew him longer and whatnot. But yeah, it's a sad day for sure. So if you can lift up some people with your thoughts, your wishes, whatever it may be, I think that is something that can go a long way ultimately, and it's the least that we can do. But, certainly there's going to be a lot of people there for the family. I have no doubts about that because of how beloved he was.
Chip, in the chat room, JJ to Bonner, this is in the forum, JJ to Bonner is what we live for. What a player, man, broadcaster, Baylor legend. The radio broadcast will never be the same for me. Hard to believe. I pray for his family as they face this, as we all face this at this particular time.
So you mentioned the A&M call was mentioned. And having had to produce many a Baylor game between that one and the time where they got good, I mean, like really good. I mean, that was a huge win for them because Baylor was so bad and they hadn't beaten A&M in so long. And they did it in double overtime, and they managed to rip Gameday out of College Station that week. As a matter of fact, I remember Reese Davis going, I don't know where Gameday is going to be next week, like after watching the highlight of it. But here was John was so excited. He just went, he calls the play, and then he's just like, ah! Yeah. Like he just yells. Yep. And JJ was the same way. They were so excited. And I've heard it more times than I've probably heard my own phone number. Like that's how much I heard that. And it will always be there in my mind. And then there was a call that they put on the outgoing highlight reel when they were signing off of football games. That was a Texas Tech call that it was just John making the call and JJ like going, ooh, or something like that. And that is maybe the indelible call memory I'll have of him forever doing that. And again, I'm just totally heartbroken that I won't get to see him or talk to him or, and I'm way low down on that list when it comes to JJ friends. There's people like I would really like to send a text to John Morris today, but I think I need to wait a little time because he's just probably overwhelmed. I can't imagine what it feels like, and we'll talk to Ricky later. Like those three have been a lot of places together for a long time.
He was once a fourth-string quarterback and then got forced into playing because of an injury or two. And eventually, in a game against Texas Tech, he came in, hit 4 of 7 passes for 77 yards, engineered drives of 80 and 54 yards to get a win for Baylor. He started the next 3 games. Baylor wins against Houston, SMU, TCU, broke his hand in practice the week before Arkansas, and had an abbreviated season. throwing for 5 touchdowns and 714 yards. There's a lot of different things about him. From C. Watts, during this season, he was my favorite guest to come on Sikkim 365 Radio. That's us, 365 Sports. Loved his segments with us on Mondays. Usually every other Monday was Ricky on Tuesdays, JJ Joe on Mondays. And he never, as much as he loved Baylor, as much as playing for Baylor, broadcasting for Baylor, I went and Googled his name in 365 Sports, and Emory puts up a lot of these segments. There are one after another where he was very critical of sometimes how they played or when they earned it. He was not afraid to say exactly what he was feeling at that particular time as they struggled through one season after another, especially 2020, what was it, 3. Ice Bear wasn't around when JJ was a player, but his raw joy and excitement in the radio calls was infectious. R.I.P. From Jim, sad day in my household. Any playing highlights someone can think of, link them to me, please. Love to reflect on some of those games. And then there was talking about A&M. There was one post about I will be watching the end of the Oklahoma game, the Terrence Williams from RG3, the A&M overtime win, and then also a couple of other games. The JJ Joe to Melvin Bonner. I'll be watching and listening to them as much as I can for the rest of the day. So our thoughts and prayers to JJ Joe, the family, those fans of Baylor, and also, of course, of Baylor University as we come to you on this Wednesday afternoon on 365 Sports.